shouldn't be this quiet. It's Space Apps. Let me hear you say Space Apps! Now let me hear again, Space Apps!
Space Apps!
Oh, okay.
One more time. They can't hear you on ISS. Make them hear you. Space Apps!
Space Apps!
Right. Welcome to Space Apps Seattle, the NASA International Space Apps Challenge Hackathon 2019. We are so happy you guys are all here. This is our kickoff night. This is where it all begins. And we're going to take you through a great program and great speakers that we've got both tonight and all through the weekend. And let's get into it. So did you know that this is the 5th year for Space Apps Seattle?
Woo!
Yeah.
Year number 5. And Space Apps itself has been around for 8 years. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go into the rest of these slides. So what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to give you an idea of what's in store. How many people, this is their first Space Apps? Wow, that's a lot. How many people, this is their first hackathon of any kind?
Wow.
Wow, that's great. How many people have been here before? Maybe last year or the year before? How many people were at the very first Space Apps Seattle hackathon? Yeah, that guy there. Yeah, Rahul. Right. Awesome. Yeah, we've got heritage going on here. We've got a community that's building here. We've got exciting things to do, and we've got great people to do it with. So, we're going to do our keynote speaker is Chris Richards, CEO and founder of RBC Cygnus. We're going to have him give a talk. We'll give you an overview of the hackathon, since it seems like a lot of people haven't done Space Apps before and haven't done hackathons either, to give you an idea of what's going on. I'll go into the challenges themselves, right? Because these are the things that NASA wants you to focus on. These are the problems and the categories and the problems that NASA is looking for you to solve with the data that they provide as a benefit to the public good, to the world. Once we get through that, it's time for you guys to start forming our teammates. So, in terms of the program, tonight it's all about getting oriented, picking out your challenges, forming up teams. Tomorrow is when you're going to be doing the bulk of the hacking. On Sunday, yeah, you'll probably be working on your projects a little bit, but you'll also be working on your presentations.
All right.
How about now?
I was trying to put the fan on it. There you go.
Okay. You're going to do your demos for the judges. The judges will give their period of deliberation. We'll do our awards presentation all at the end. We've got an amazing judging panel this year. We've got Robert Kahn from Black Sky. They are a space data analysis company. Todd Hossain from Second Views. He's actually a co-founder of Space Apps. And he's never been to a Space Apps hackathon. So you guys are going to have to make him super welcome. We're going to have a great event for him for his first time. Ray Ramadorai from Blue Origin, Jeff Rayner from Mixed Reality, Bob Zimmering from Lockheed Martin, who's here tonight as well. So one thing that we had this year that we didn't really have much last year is a bunch of talks and learning sessions throughout the weekend. You'll hear from Chris tonight. But tomorrow, you'll get a chance to learn about AWS DeepLens. That's a device, a camera with onboard machine learning capabilities. We'll have an intro on using NASA data. You'll hear from AWS Ground Station. Sunday, Lockheed Martin will have a fireside chat. Todd is able to give his own space. You might have seen some of the postcards out on the table up front. These are two things that you should be looking at, right? The guide for hackers, if you don't know where it is or you didn't get the email, you can just go to spaceappseattle.org, click that big button that says Guide for Hackers, read it. And also get into the Hacker Slack. I know a lot of you have signed up already, but these are two ways that we're going to keep you informed about what's going on over the course of the weekend. And now, I'm going to play this little video of Welcome, which has no sound. Okay, let's have let's try that again.
Hello, Space Apps Seattle. My name is Matt Scott, and I'm the Global Community Manager for NASA's International Space Apps Challenge, what I like to call the universe's largest hackathon. And I say that because since its founding in 2012, Space Apps has taken place not only on all 7 continents and in about 100 countries, but also in Seattle, Washington, and on the International Space Station. So Space Apps is truly a universal experience. And I use that word universal because it's not just about the engineers and coders and developers and scientists and experts getting hands-on over the course of Space Apps Weekend. But Space Apps is also about the students, the newcomers, the storytellers, the artists, the designers, and those who might not traditionally feel like hackathons are for them. I truly hope that this weekend you feel like you're part of NASA and that you feel like you're hands-on with NASA and NASA's open data, because that's really the point of Space Apps. It's not just about creating awesome out-of-this-world innovation, but really it's about collaborating and learning and having a great time, which is what I'm hoping is happening at your event in Seattle this year. I know you're going to meet my teammate Todd Hosin later this weekend, so I hope you say hi to him for me, and I also hope that you use #SpaceApps, not only to thank your local lead team of Mike Doyle and the others who are working tirelessly to put this event on, but also to share about your project, share how you're using NASA's open data, and to share the story of why you're part of Space Apps. Because I know that I'll be checking out #SpaceApps. I know the rest of the global organizing team will, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to share about why you're there and why Space Apps and NASA and what you're creating this weekend matters to you. So thanks again for being part of this. Really, Space Apps and Space Apps Seattle for sure wouldn't be possible without you, so thanks again for being here. And in closing, I just want to thank you for being here and wish you the best of luck as you create solutions, not only alongside the participants at your local event, but alongside people all across the globe. Happy hacking.
I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Mike Doyle. Thanks. I just want to let you know that Space Apps Global really cares about our community. Not everyone got one of these wonderful videos from Matt Scott. He would probably have to stay up all night because this is happening in over 200 locations around the world at the same time. So you are part of a truly global event. And it wouldn't happen without our sponsors. Amazon Web Services, Lockheed Martin are our galactic sponsors this year. They have done just an amazing, made an amazing commitment to Space Apps, and you'll get to meet folks from Lockheed Martin both tonight and throughout the hackathon, and get to play with devices and grab some AWS swag as well. And Surf Incubator, Seaton, where'd you go to? Seaton Gross, proprietor of Surf Incubator, the home of Space Apps for 4 out of the 5 years, and we really couldn't do it without without this great venue and seeing that as an amazing program. Our other sponsors, ANSYS. Should grab some pens. We got ANSYS t-shirts we're going to put out tomorrow. Your pizza is coming from Pagliacci, right? The coffee is from Victrola. The Space Frontier Foundation is once again partnering with us, and there will be a ticket to New Space 2020 that will go to a lucky hacker at the end of the weekend. Seattle Makers has some great offers for hackers. If you are the making kind, they are offering 3D printing and laser cutting, and all the details are in the guide for hackers. Did I tell you guys to read that? Okay. Ada's, they were the place that we had our kickoff on Tuesday night. How many people made it out to that event? Who was at Ada's? That was a pretty cool event. Really nice space. I love that place. I feel like I want to move in. Our partners, Space Entrepreneurs, has been side by side with us, as well as Orbital Engineers, all the way in this journey. Alpha, the Association of Latino Professionals for America, has also been a partner, helping get the word out and increasing the diversity, because that's a big part of what Space Apps is about. You heard Matt Scott talk about it. It's the diversity of perspectives, the diversity of skills, the diversity of backgrounds that we bring together in a global mission to advance the future of humanity both on Earth and in space. So when I'm thinking about Space Apps, I think about connections, and it's all of these different levels of, the community aspect between people, the connection of the public with NASA data. NASA's got these troves of data. They want to put it in the hands of people who do amazing things with it because it was produced for our benefit. We're connecting the space community and the tech community and design and people who might not normally come together but are inspired by a mission that NASA has put in front of us. And we are connected in a very real way to fellow hackers around the world. So I think this is a good way to segue to our keynote speaker, Christopher Richards, founder and CEO of RBC Signals, and someone who makes the connection from space to ground on a daily basis. Chris is the founder and CEO of RBC Signals, and they provide global satellite communication infrastructure as a service. And they have the goal of democratizing access to data from space. Mr. Richards began his career as an RF communications engineer at Boeing Sea Launch, and after business school he interned at SpaceX and has held management roles at Planetary Resources, Space Angels Network, Expedia, and Applause. Talk about connecting the space and tech communities. This is an example of a person who's done both. So I will hand it over to Mr. Richards. Please give him your applause.
Thanks, Mike. This is blinding. Let's do this. Technology at work. All right, so this is really exciting for me to be here, and I'm really grateful to Space Apps, to Mike, for the opportunity to come and speak with you. Because 20 years ago, I would never have imagined that I would be standing here doing this. In fact, I would have had no business being here. And so I want to talk a little bit about why I'm the guy that is talking to you tonight, and get you thinking about what's going to bring you talking to the next generation of people coming to Space Apps. But just for my interest, because this is such a cool organization, and it's such a cool group of people, I want to ask you a few questions. I want to get a little participation from you, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about me. but I'm curious, how many of you are the, if you're an engineer, are the only engineer in your family? Okay, that's pretty cool. All right, how many aren't engineers at all and are the only kind of space-interested person in your family or group of friends? So, okay, we've actually got some people. Which of you comes from a background that does not suggest you should have anything to do with space? Okay, right? Okay, so part of what I want to do tonight, I wanted to ask some age questions. Is there anybody in here under 20? Under the age of 20? Awesome. Welcome. Okay. Is there anybody here over the age of 50? Awesome. And then I'm sure we've got lots of stuff in between. Okay, so the path that brought me here was a very unlikely one. So, and Mike, I'm going to need to have you give me the hook or a sign when my time is running out here. We'll keep this brief. But so I grew up in an agricultural town in Northern California. Neither of my parents finished college. I didn't have any idea what engineering was when I went to college. I went to college because I felt like it was the right thing to do, but I really didn't have any idea what I was supposed to do with my life. And so when I was a senior in high school, my grandfather, he worked at IBM, and he said, I can get you an internship at IBM if you can figure something out about computers. So I was like, man, how am I going to do that? And so I went as a senior in high school to the local community college, and I took a networking class. I learned how to do Novell networks. So this is back in 94 or something like that. And I took a C programming class. I'd been interested in computers, but never really done anything like that. And so I did all that work, took all those classes, and then my grandpa got fired right before I was supposed to go work, and so I got no internship. And I ended up, picking peaches or something that summer. Was pretty bummed about it. Went to college, to a junior college. So I guess that's one thing that I'll say is that just you don't have to be an engineer to start, or to go to a big 4-year school to be able to do something cool. So I went to a small junior college. In fact, I had fewer students in it than the high school that I attended, and I wanted to be a geneticist, and all the genetics classes were full, and so I was like, well, I took those computer classes when I was back in high school. Maybe I'll do some computer stuff. And so I got a 2-year degree in information systems, learning how to program mainframe computers. You're like, where's the space coming into this? So I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons. And you might know, or might not, that they send young people out into the world as missionaries. And so when I turned 19, that was the right time to go, and so you put your papers in and you say, I'm ready to go, and they send you wherever in the world. And they ended up sending me to eastern Ukraine. And so I was there for 2 years, and it was while I was in eastern Ukraine that the space bug bit me. I remember exactly where I was at. I can show you the apartment and the ratty old chair that I was sitting in when I got a letter from my mom. Bless her for that. She had read a newspaper article that had the word Ukraine in it, and so she printed it out because she thought I would think it was interesting. Basically, it was the story of Sea Launch. And if you haven't heard about Sea Launch, it is one of the coolest things. So it's this company, and they would take Russian and Ukrainian rockets, and they would put it on a Norwegian ship in the port of Long Beach in California, and that ship was a floating rocket factory. And sitting right next to that rocket factory was a floating rocket launch platform. And so they would take these Russian and Ukrainian rockets, assemble them all together, put some of the biggest satellites that had ever been launched in the history of humankind onto those. They would sail down to the equator out in the middle of the ocean and launch these huge satellites into space. And I thought that was the most cool James Bond job I had ever heard of in my life. To be able to go out to sea, work in this multinational environment, and be able to put stuff into space. And it just, something about that idea captured my mind, and said, someday you will run a multinational space company. I had no business thinking that thought. You know, with the educational background I had, with with my parents, all these different things, like there was no reason I should have believed that that could happen. So after I got, so I served out my 2 years in Ukraine. I went home. I was 3 semesters away from a business management undergrad degree. I thought business, it was something that I could understand. I could do that. But I called this company, Sea Launch, up on the phone when I got back. Like literally the day that I got back, I called them up and I said, I will do anything to be on that ship. Like I'll swab the deck. I don't care. What do you need? Because I want to work launching these rockets into space from out in the middle of the ocean. And they said, we need RF engineers. I couldn't even spell RF. I had no idea what RF engineering meant. It's radio frequency engineering. It's like wireless communications, stuff that like even the people that know engineering don't know what that is. So it's hard. And so I did some research and I found out that means that I needed to change my major to electrical engineering. I thought electrical engineers were the guys that string wires in houses. Like I had no concept of what that discipline was. And then when I did a little bit more research, I realized instead of 3 semesters, it was going to take me 3.5 years of additional school to be able to do all the math and the science and the physics and everything that I would need to be able to be an RF engineer. But the space bug bit me. In my journal, as I was in Ukraine, there's little rocket drawings all over the place. Like I just couldn't get it out of my mind. So it wasn't like I chose space. I felt like space chose me. And so I went to school and I did everything that I could to prepare myself to be the perfect employee at Sea Launch. I lived in Ukraine. I was fluent in Russian because of the time that I had spent there, but I didn't know anything about rockets and I didn't know anything about engineering. And so I thought, what value can I add? And so I immediately started to reach out to industry groups. So there's this AIAA that deals with rockets. And I went to Brigham Young for my undergrad. After I transferred out from the junior college, I transferred into to BYU. And BYU had this multi-university hybrid rocket project. So a hybrid rocket, it's not a solid rocket or a liquid rocket, it's a solid rocket with a liquid oxidizer. Really cool technology, lots of universities were working on it. So I started to go work for those guys even though I had 0 applicable skills to what they were doing. But I knew that I wanted to be there. And as I tried everything I could to learn those skills, I slowly started to take the classes that gave me some of the fundamental knowledge that I needed. And I just learned by doing. And that's one of the things that I love about this group here. Not only are you going to meet incredible people, which is arguably the most valuable thing that you're going to take away from whatever happens this weekend. The people that are around here, people that are passionate about space, passionate enough about it to give up their Friday night, to be here, give up their Saturday, give up their Sunday, right? To kind of geek out together about something that's really cool. Like these are your people. This tribe here, this is pretty awesome. And so for me, it was about how do I start to connect with those people. Working on that project was a big thing. And just trying to make myself as valuable as I could. And I tried every single year to get an internship with Sea Launch. And every single year for 3 years, they said, no thanks. And I didn't blame them, I didn't know anything. Finally, 6 months, 1 semester before I graduated, they said, come on out. And you better believe that when I showed up on port that first day, first of all, I was crying a little bit because it was so beautiful. And these ships are so huge and they are so cool. And anyway, and they're right now being shipped from their home port in California to Russia to be used for who knows what. But anyway, showed up and I was ready for that job because it was the sole focus of 3.5 years of work. And when I was taking all of those, help you find a job classes, all those counselors thought I was crazy because I didn't just know exactly the company I wanted to work for. I knew the job inside the company, and they were like, that is never going to happen. But that's exactly what I wanted to do. And it worked. I was so fortunate, and they loved me. And I spent the next 5 years launching rockets from out in the middle of the ocean. And it was like, for me, it was like celebrating my birthday, going to work every single day, because it was something that I was so passionate about. But I didn't want to work at a multinational space company. I wanted to run a multinational space company. And I don't know why I wanted to run one, but that, for some reason, that was the vision. And so when I started working at Sea Launch, I knew I wanted to not just know the communication part, but I wanted to know space, so I got a master's degree in astronautics. And University of Southern California, anybody? Anybody? No? University of Southern California has a distance education program where you can get a master's degree in astronautics, rocket science, in 3 years from anywhere in the world. Which is good because I did a lot of it from out in the middle of the ocean on a ship using the communication system that I was responsible for to make sure that I could take my classes. So I was very motivated. After 5 years of working, I was like, all right, I've kind of hit the demographic to go to business school. Because I wasn't an engineer at heart. I mean, it just so happened that I was good at it and I loved it, but I didn't really feel like I was an engineer. I liked the business side of it, so I would decide I was going to go to business school. And I was going to go to night school here at UW because at that time I had transferred up. I was working for Boeing in Kent and then Auburn, and I was just going to go to night school. And so I took the GMAT, thinking like, don't worry about it, it's night school. And I got rejected from night school. And I felt so bad, and I was like, what happened? They're like, well, you have 4.5 years of work experience, and we want a full 5. I was like, it'll be 5 before you start. They said no. But I was very grateful because that allowed me to then think about what could happen. And I was very fortunate to go on a full fellowship to the University of Virginia and go to one of the top business schools in the world, and was able to do it on a full fellowship. And so that was a great blessing for me. But coming out of that, what I learned was there are a lot of really tough problems in the world to solve, and you need a lot more than just engineers to solve those problems. Because you can have the most perfect, most elegant technical solution in the world, and that solution will never see the light of day because you don't have all of the other disciplines around it to make it happen. Whether it's design, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's sales, whether it's funding and financing, and all of these other things that are required to make that happen. And so that's what I learned in business school, is how do I fill in the rest of those gaps. After business school, was very lucky to be able to go and work for Elon at SpaceX. I was as a business student going in there, not as an engineer. And if you're a business person working at SpaceX, there's one person really thinking hard about business at SpaceX, and he doesn't need a lot of other people thinking hard about it. He wants people doing what he tells them to do, and I was kind of thinking I wanted to do my own thing, and so I didn't stay there after my internship. I could have and decided that wasn't for me. Was a management consultant, learned how to run lots of non-space businesses, railroads, retail auto parts, telephone companies, all this weird stuff. I did that for a couple of years, and that's when I got the call from Planetary Resources. They were so super secret stealth, they didn't even want me to tell my wife what I was doing. Came out here, was employee number 3, helped them move out of an apartment where their first office was into their first building, and we were gonna mine asteroids. And that was so cool to think about. And I knew it was a long shot, but I knew that coming would teach me a lot of really cool stuff. Got fired after like 9 months. That was rough. I moved out here. I had 3 kids at the time. My baby was just born. I had told my wife, hey, don't worry about it. I used to work in this big management consulting firm making buku bucks, but we can go to this startup. It'll be fine. 9 months later, unemployed. Ouch. So I took a couple of years break because something had happened while I was at Planetary Resources. We were going to launch these satellites into space to try and find asteroids, because you need to prospect asteroids before you can mine them. You need to know where they're at. And there was a huge problem they had. Satellites in space that are gathering all this data, they need to get all that data down to the ground. And it just so happens that it is a gnarly problem, and I'll let the guys at AWS Ground Station talk about why that's a tough problem. You'll hear about that tomorrow. But it was a tough problem for us at Planetary Resources, and I realized there was nobody in the world solving that problem in a way that made sense for commercial industry. There were some people that had solved that problem for NASA, but NASA's got budgets that, they don't really think about profitability. They just think about failure is not an option, so things look a little different when you have failure is not an option as your mandate. And so after I left Planetary Resources, I decided that I needed to build a company that made it easy to move data between space and the ground. Because you cannot earn a penny in space today unless data is moving between space and the ground. If your satellite up in space is not communicating, it is space junk. It has almost no other value. And so that communication is absolutely critical. And so solving that problem for me made it possible to solve that problem, hopefully, for the industry. And so that's after 3 years of doing other things to continue to prepare myself to run a multinational space company, I finally decided it was time to start RBC Signals to solve that problem of how do we use the resources available out there in the world to move data between space and the ground. So now I'm 4 years in to running a multinational space company. I founded the company with a Russian co-founder and an American co-founder, because one of the things that I felt like was really important, I was inspired by the multinational nature of Sea Launch. And that's why even from the beginning I knew that I wanted to run a multinational space company, because I feel like when countries work together, that's when the power of space is really unlocked. Space is a vantage point that just begs to be used for global applications. You have that vantage point to see everything from there. And so that's what we did. And so now I've got a global network of ground stations. I've got a global team. We've got people in Israel. We've got people in Spain. We've got people in Russia. We've got people here scattered around the U.S. And we get to work with customers from all over the world, making it easy to move that data between space and the ground. And so the reason that I took you through that whole journey, there are a couple of things that I hope you take away from it. Number one, don't stress if you don't know what your life is about. Like, you can find and you can change tracks at any time. You can find your passion. You can find something that, the bug that bites you, and you can pivot to that, even when you think you're already too far down some certain path and you can't change. If you decide that you want to do it, you can do that. It just depends on how hard are you willing to work for it, and what are you willing to sacrifice to get there. And I can tell you that there were a lot of times that we had to make some pretty big sacrifices, and not just me, but my family, to be able to put ourselves in a position to do what we're doing right now. I would say another lesson learned is don't feel like you're somehow not worthy or not qualified or not enough to do those things that you're passionate about. You absolutely are. And if you do find that you're deficient in some area, build the skills, surround yourself with the people that are strong in those areas. You can make it happen. And groups like this are how you get that done. The network of people that you're going to meet here, these are friends that can stay with you for the rest of your careers. And pretty soon, this group of people are going to be running the companies that make what's coming next possible. So in conclusion, I want to give you a little bit of encouragement, because if I could do it all over again, and if I was starting a company today, I would start it in this room. Because the thing that you are doing as part of this hackathon is exactly what I see as the biggest need and the biggest opportunity in space, bar none. In my opinion, the biggest opportunity in space is creating value from the data that is generated and captured in space. So space communication, that has been a huge moneymaker for a lot of people for a long time. A communication satellite costs about $1/3 billion just to get into that business. Yeah, that's a lot of money. But what we're talking about now dwarfs that in terms of the opportunities that are out there. Because what's happened is over the last few decades, the infrastructure required to make this hackathon possible has been laid. So you've got infrastructure companies like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and others getting the launch capacity to be able to launch stuff into space easily. You've got space manufacturing, satellite manufacturing, where you've got miniaturization. You've got companies like Planet building 3U CubeSats that can image and communicate vast amounts of data. You've got all this, you've got miniaturization of processing power and communications and all of these things. So the capabilities that are available today, you can go get funded by some VC and put something in space. I wouldn't recommend that you do that. That's a quick way to lose your money. But if you need to, you can. Put something in space and you can get that data down. And you don't have to be a nation state like you used to be. So the opportunities now are so great. But here's where you come in. Because for so long, everybody has been so focused on that infrastructure piece. Nobody is thinking about, well, how are we going to use all of that data? And the creativity and the imagination of the people in this room and the people around the world that are doing this hackathon are going to be the people that are unlocking the potential of that data that's being generated. We don't have to wait. The raw materials are already there. NASA has got in their data room enough data to make everybody in this room rich for the rest of their lives. The raw materials are there. All we need to do is figure out what to do with it. And the way to do that is to not start with the technology. The way to do that is to start by thinking, what problem are you going to solve? And that's what I love about this hackathon, is it starts from the problem statement. Here's the problem, and then you think about, what tools do I have to be able to solve that problem? What do I need to bring together? And so that's what I hope for you, is that you can be thinking about, what problems here on Earth can I solve with this data that is coming from space? And use not just space data, but use any kind of data that you can to be able to solve those problems. And that is where the value is going to come from. When Elon and when Jeff Bezos and everybody gets all of their satellites up into space, and we've got ubiquitous broadband all over the whole Earth, and you've got little kids in any country in the world having access to all of the information that we have on the internet. Thomas Jefferson said that genius is uniformly distributed throughout the world. Think about what's going to happen when all of those kids get access to the internet and all of the genius that's going to be unlocked. That starts here by you guys building tools, building algorithms, solving problems. And I'm excited for it. And I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had to speak to you tonight. I hope you heard something tonight that inspires you to go out and try something awesome. And don't be afraid if it's not something that's going to turn out in 6 months or in 2 weeks. Don't be afraid to make it the pursuit of your life. It took me 17 and a half years from the day that I was bitten by the space bug until I recognized the realization of that vision. And I'm still working at it. And I know that you guys can do it as well. Thank you very much.
Hey, I'd like to get Bob Zimmering from Lockheed Martin to come up and give his greeting to our hackers.
Thanks. Thanks, Mike. That was amazing. Holy crap. I cannot follow that. So I'm Bob Zimmering. I am the Director of Quality for Lockheed Martin Space Systems. So it's my job to make sure that the stuff we make works. We make satellites. We make stuff that goes on satellites, and we make things that launch satellites. We also make things that protect national security for the United States and for our foreign allies. So when you said SpaceX and Blue Origin and others, we're one of the others. No hard feelings. We've been around for 70 years, and we're about 100,000 people worldwide. We're about $40 billion a year in revenue. In addition to the space stuff, we make aircraft, we make Navy parts, etc. So that was an amazing story, and I just kept thinking about my own experience getting bitten by the space bug, by the science bug, and just all my life, like, how do you figure out how things work? That was the thing that always motivated me. Like, I remember I worked at I had kind of a similarly chaotic career cycle, but I worked at a electronics store, consumer electronics store, back when they had cassette players that you would run with. And so that was cool, because you could run and skip. And people would come into the store and they'd be like, hey, this thing doesn't work. You sold it to me. Can you fix it? No, it's actually more expensive to fix it than it is to just buy a new one. And and they typically get really mad, right? And say, well, you know, I like messing with things. If you want me to mess with it, I can. If I fix it, you can have it for free. And if you can't, then you're no worse off, right? And just give me their junk, and usually 90% of the time I couldn't do anything useful with it. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot about electronics, mechanical stuff, miniaturization, all that kind of cool stuff. And it was just awesome. And to me, that was kind of my introduction to hacking. And it is that mindset that I try to keep forward in my job and what I do, trying to understand, problem solve, and just where do you go from there. So I'll be doing the fireside chat. I'm not quite sure what that means yet. Is there a fire?
There'll be no fires.
No fire?
No fires.
Okay. I guess we sit by a fireplace, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you guys, meeting you guys. I'll be one of the judges. So buy me a cup of coffee, I'll go easy on you. Just kidding, I won't. Yeah, so super excited to be here. My first hackathon, Space Apps Hackathon. When I do my fireside chat, I'll tell you a little bit more about what I got into, my career journey, and how excited I am to work in the space industry, because it really is one of the coolest jobs on earth. So great to meet you guys. Thanks again for your talk. Amazing, awesome, and back to you, Mike.
All right, let's talk about the challenges. Has everybody reviewed the challenges? Everybody got it? Okay, so there's like some printouts in the back if you want to look at them, but they cover the theme of Space Apps this year is exploring near and far, and they cover 6 categories, and I'm just going to go into them quickly so that we can move on to team information. Earth's oceans, right? Several challenges related to what we do on Earth, related to the ocean, internet on the ocean, cool. Rising water, yep, gonna have to deal with that. Trash cleanup, very important. Maybe something that could involve making parts and robotics. Category 2, our moon, dealing with dust. Yes, that's important. Evaluating lunar samples, and there's an art challenge in this category. Planets near and far. Build your own planet. How? That's not something that I would think I could do in a weekend. Out of this world, unmanned aerial systems, memory makers. This one caught my eye. This is actually not electronic at all. The challenge here is to make a mechanical automaton that can survive on Venus. And then looking at lost data, filling in the gaps, and improving machine learning through it. To the stars, we've got flyby wireless, orbital scrap metal, yeah, making a video game about about space junk. Another kind of creative space agency sort of travel agency sort of idea around that, and creating a virtual reality environment or game related to the James Webb. Living in our world, another chance to make a game using NASA data, making green infrastructure solutions for complex challenges in water management and risk reduction. From Curious Mind comes Helping Hands. And there you'll be designing an innovative platform to integrate satellite data and information about vulnerable populations. I think this is an amazing category to take on, and setting your sights high. Challenge related to developing a tool to help people identify satellites and satellite instruments as they fly over our Earth. Category 6, invent your own challenge. It's up to you. I will make one note about this category, invent your own challenge. It will not be eligible for global judging, right? So what we do at Space Apps is we have you hack on NASA challenges, and then we award local awards, and then we pick 2 projects to advance to global judging, where you will be eligible for prizes, well, for a prize. If you actually win a category at the global level, it's a special tour for Space Apps Challenge winners of the Kennedy Space Center, travel and lodging not included. But it's a fantastic opportunity, and I really hope that we send a project to Global that makes it all the way. We had a project last year that made it to finalist state. If we can clinch a category this year, that would be a really sweet score for Space Apps Seattle. But challenges in this category, not eligible for global judging. Challenges must also show their use of NASA data or NASA resources of some kind within their solution to be eligible for a global award. Okay, I'm done with that. Let's talk about team formation. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes in this space. Look around the room. There are posters that are related to each of the challenge categories. Okay? The category that interests you, gravitate towards that poster. Once you get there, you'll find like-minded individuals, people who are also interested in challenges within that category, and you can start talking about what you're interested in taking on. Some of you may have been doing a little bit of this ideation over dinner or when you just arrived, but the brainstorming is what will happen over the next 45 minutes. Start to form up your teams. Now, after that, we will have a pitch session. If there's anybody who wants to get up and talk about their idea, their project, and want to get others to join in on it, say what your project is, what you need. We'll do that after 45 minutes of ideation. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. If you come up with a team and you guys are locked and ready to roll, you can be talking about that. We are not going to be taking up spaces around Surf Incubator tonight, right? We're going to do that tomorrow morning. Okay, so don't start squatting in conference rooms and claiming that there's something. We're not going to do that tonight. We'll be back here at 9 tomorrow morning, and that's when we'll have a little bit of logistical intro, and I will give you the signal when it's time to go to grab your conference rooms. Okay. You'll want to create a team on spaceappschallenge.org associated with your project, and that can happen either tonight or tomorrow morning. If you don't get on a team tonight, you can still come in the morning. We'll look to form you up with teams. Anybody who's coming in late, and try to get everybody onto a team and make something great happen. That's a solar system in the Mesa Formation. That's what I got to say. Okay, you all got a little sticker that you put on your badge when you came in, so that people can understand what kind of skills you all have, right? If you're trying to do you've got a great hardware idea, but you don't have any hardware people around, look for the purple badge, purple stickers on the badge, design and art, software, business, marketing. It's what you want to do this weekend, and it's the skills that you want to bring to the game, and what you can find in others to make a team that can make the Space Apps Challenge happen. Okay. Has everybody got that? Okay. So, it's now time to launch. What I want you all to do, I want you to make a rocket launching sound. I'm going to count you down. 3, 2, 1. Make a loud rocket launching sound. Let's get the Space Apps Challenge launched. 3, 2, 1. All right, that's it. Go do it.
challenge yourself. Do something new. I'm Mike.
Not good.